Hey, good morning everyone. Today I wanted to do a quick live video, or quickish hopefully, live video on do you need a property manager? So very clearly I am a property manager. I'm based out of Gulfport, Mississippi. I manage properties in both Gulfport, Biloxi, and we'll go to D'Iberville as well, or we'll consider other areas for existing clients. So for starters, obviously people are going to ask, do you need a property manager? And the answer is not exactly simple, but it varies on every situation. So I just want to go over a list of things that I would suggest in looking to decide if you need a property manager or not. Not everyone does, but a lot of people do. So for starters, if you're close to the home, that's something to consider. If you're going to be far away, that's something also to consider. So if you are going to be out of the country, I have a lot of clients who are not even in this country and they have a home in the area that they left, whether they PCS'd or just moved, and they leave and they're no longer able to manage their property or look after it. You can manage your property from overseas. You absolutely can. You can manage your property from anywhere in the world. However, having a team of people that you trust to be able to help you is imperative. So if you do not have someone that you trust that can go over to the home to look at it, to do regular walkthroughs, things like that, I definitely would encourage you to get a property manager or to reach out for someone to see what services they can offer for you. So proximity definitely plays a big role. If you're in the area, even people who are in the area, may need a property manager. It just depends on your availability to go to the house. If you're willing to go to the house to deal with, any things that may arise, issues, or anything that may need to be addressed. So that's one thing to consider. How many units you have. So if you are investing and you have one unit or a handful, maybe 5, 6 units, that's still something that you're able to manage yourself. Is it easy? Not necessarily, but can you do it? Yes, you can. However, once you start getting over the 5, 6, 7, 8 plus range, that's something I highly recommend getting a property manager. And that's because it gets to be time consuming and it gets to be hard to keep track of without the proper softwares and things. While anyone can get software for property management, any investor can do so, it is costly and cuts into your profits if you only have so many properties. And it also becomes a full-time job for you at some point. Depending on the needs of each property. So that's something to consider. A lot of people will start off managing their own properties if they've got a handful or a small handful, and once they grow they realize that they need a property manager. Another thing to consider is, do you have experience? Is it something that you've done before? Do you feel comfortable? Do you know how? This is a later point but kind of goes hand in hand with this, is do you feel comfortable enforcing your lease? So a lease is a legal document between you and your tenant, or you, the tenant, and property manager, depending on how things are set up. If you do not feel comfortable enforcing a lease, or if you're a person who has emotions, tied to the property, for example, or just are an emotional person, nothing wrong with that. However, if a tenant reaches out to you and they say, hey, I can't pay rent for whatever reason it is, well, I always encourage owners to try and work with people. There are things that come up or are regular occurrences where you have to step in and you have to be able to draw a line. So something to consider is if you feel comfortable with doing something such as that and saying, hey, you haven't paid in 2 months, it's time that we start the eviction process, or whatever it is that you're comfortable with. If you don't feel comfortable enforcing your lease, you don't feel comfortable doing things involving court and legal proceedings, it is definitely something I would recommend where you get a property manager to deal with that. Can you afford one? And I want to be careful in saying this because if you cannot afford a property manager, now it depends on your area and what they're offering and what the costs are that involve that. But if it's something where you cannot afford whatever the fee is, and now some people do charge more, so there is that, but it is something you may need to take a look at and think to yourself, can you afford to have that investment property? And again, I say that carefully, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but if you can't afford regular expenses, or to know if, let's just say, your hot water heater goes out and it's several hundred or several $1,000s, if you can't afford things like that, you may not be able to afford a property manager, but also you may not be able to afford having another property. So that's something that any property manager or even a real estate agent may be able to go over with you. I know finances and things nobody likes to talk about, but you always want to be able to have an oh crap kind of fund, you know, worst case scenario if something happens. So another thing to consider is time. Do you have the time? Let's say that you are a person who is on the go constantly. You know, you don't really have a lull. You know, you just don't have extra time in your life, like a lot of us. If you don't have the time to take a step back to either go to your property, to contact people, to follow up with maintenance people who are not always the easiest to get a hold of, especially in this environment currently, if you don't have that kind of time, you may consider getting a property manager. Control, giving up control, if that's something you're not comfortable with. I actually work with several investors who it is hard to give up control because you're basically letting someone else handle this. However, if you get the right property manager, they'll be able to explain what they do, and you can have a better relationship with them and knowing and feeling comfortable that they have the right control that you would like, and so that you're in the picture in the way that you would like as well. So that's also something to consider. Hey guys, can you enforce the lease? We kind of touched on that earlier. Really a big thing, and I'm gonna say it again even though I went over it. If you don't feel comfortable enforcing a lease and you don't feel comfortable putting your foot down to enforce something like pets, like other roommates, things like that, you really should consider a property manager. Maintenance, if you do not have people that you trust that are in your corner that can fix the property, particularly if you're not in the area, this is a huge reason that you would want a property manager. They have a team that they work with, myself included. I have a typical list of vendors. If for some reason they're unavailable, I do have some other vendors that I can choose from, but what we do is we vet them as far as being licensed, insured, and also I've used a lot of vendors. They're not always amazing, and I obviously have top vendors and people that I choose for a reason. I've kind of gone through and gotten the bad ones out of the way, so you don't have to go through that experience. So that was my list. That was 8 reasons on if you need a property manager, if you don't need a property manager. I'm also happy to go over the 2 with you. I think that's something a lot of property managers don't do is, you know, it might not work best for you to have a property manager. And I'm okay with saying that. Some people don't necessarily need one, but some people do. So there's 2 sides, and I'd be happy to go and weigh the pros and cons for you. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you're considering renting out your property and you would like a consult, please don't hesitate to give me a call. And if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. I hope you guys have a great day, and I appreciate you watching. Thank you.